Well, good morning and welcome to the Morning Report. My name is Willie Lawson. The Morning Report is a production of FightBackMedia.com, 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 and FightBackMediaTV.com. Hey, listen, today we talk about if people understand what the real world is all about. All right, again, welcome to the Morning Report. You know, remember when you were young, we used to, people used to say, well, when I get, when I grow up, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to leave, get a real job. Um, and then what most of us learned, that the real job thing was a snipe hunt, that there's no real job, there's only a job. And if you were smart, you realized early that the most important things to you don't happen at work, they happen in the rest of your life. And the job is just a means to an end. Uh, because we learned about how the real world works. We learned about unions. We learned about right to work. We learned about mortgages. We learned about insurance. We learned about how the real world works. Not how we think it works or we hope it works, but how it really works. There's a case or a situation in Philadelphia with some young people who work at a coffee shop. And this coffee shop was owned by a real estate company. And you see, like in a lot of apartment complexes now, they'll have like a coffee shop on the lower floor or a tea shop because it's a captive audience, right? What you hope is like the people who live in your apartment complex will come down and grab their morning cup of coffee or their tea on their way out, and maybe drop back by on their way in for a little snack or whatever. So there's this coffee shop owned by this real estate company. Well, the workers there decided that they weren't getting paid enough because in the real world, who gets paid enough? Hmm? Who? In the real world, who gets paid enough? Me? No. You? Probably not, right? Real world. So what they thought is that they would do what Starbucks has done, because 250 Starbucks places have unionized, right? So they thought that they would do that, and that would fix their problem. Let me get to my production screen over here. Here's the video. This is 30 seconds, and it's kind of painful for me because it's really obvious that these young white liberal women don't really understand how things work.
You can't hide. We all see your greedy side.
Former employees of OCF Coffee House rallied outside of the now closed Fairmount Cafe on Tuesday.
We've been paid really bad wages, and this was our attempt to get better wages and make the place that we love better.
The coffee shops are owned by OCF Realty. The real estate brokerage announced the closures to employees in an email which included 2 other locations in South Philly. Workers like Alex Simpson say they were shocked.
I am pretty crushed, especially when it's such a blatant response to our union process. Like, this comes a week after we publicly announced our union.
I don't know. It's terrible. I shouldn't laugh, but I do laugh. It is obvious that most of us, especially people who are who are in our age group, and I've seen the demographics for this podcast. For us, we could have saw this coming from a mile away, and if we were asked, we would have told people, we would have told these young people, don't do it, don't do it. You're going to unionize your way out of a job. Because the chances of this business here, coffee business is tough business. It's a tough space. The chances of them hanging in there and paying you more and giving you more benefits, and while trying to remain profitable, because in order to do that, in order to pay you more money, in order to give you health care benefits or whatever else you want, they have to make money, which means they have to be profitable. They can't, probably, or maybe they won't, but they can't for the most part do it on what's happening now. So what they might do is they might close the business. They might stop ownership of the coffee shop. maybe lease it out to somebody else, maybe forget the idea entirely. Maybe it's too much trouble. Maybe they just want to deal with real estate and not deal with a restaurant. Maybe they thought it'd be cool, but now it's too much trouble. That's the real world. And what happened to these young liberal white women is the real world. The real world showed up and said, nope, not going to happen. Now, what might have happened is that these young people might have read, that unions were making a comeback, especially after more than 250 Starbucks stores voted to unionize. The workers at Amazon, Trader Joe's. Now, you know that these people that we just saw probably frequent a Starbucks. They probably frequent Amazon, because we all do. We're all hooked on that drug. Trader Joe's is where they shop to get their food. REI, grad students, Uber or Lyft. All that is in their universe. What they saw. Headlines started declaring things like, employees everywhere are organizing. Workers unite. Y'all know where that's from. Even the White House said, that labor seems to be having a moment. Well, here's the deal. The Bureau of Labor Statistics recently released its union data for 2022, the most recent data. And their data shows that there is far from a resurgence in unions. The share of American workers in a union has continued to decline. Last year, the union membership fell by 0.2 percentage points to 10.1%, the lowest on record. It was the second year in a row that the union rate fell. Only 1 in 10 American workers is now in a union, down from nearly 1 in 3, 33%, during the heyday of unions back in the 1950s. Now, I know some people want to parse this data. Yes, the number of people in unions did grow a little bit, by approximately 200,000. It's just that number of non-union jobs grew a lot faster. The National Labor Relations Board saw 2,510 union representations petitions filed in fiscal year of 2022, a 53% increase over the previous year. That's hardly a game changer, but it's something, I guess. But we're talking about the trend, because trend is important. It's trending where? It's not trending up, it's trending down. Last week, researchers at Cornell University released the school's annual report tracking labor actions across America. Alexander Colvin, the dean of the school, said that the data shows that something real was bubbling in the labor movement last year. They find that strikes, for example, were up 52% over the previous year in 2022. However, considering that we live in a nation with roughly 160 million workers, the absolute number of labor actions last year remains pretty small. 424 work stoppages, 417 strikes, and 7 lockouts. Even the authors of the report say this: the level of strike activity is lower than early historical eras. It's not happening. People aren't going on strikes. They're just not doing it. They can't afford to be out of work. And they may start noticing that if the unions don't partner with the business to make more business, then the person that gets hurt the most is the worker. And especially if the worker is paying dues to the union. So, in short, there was an uptick in labor organizing in 2022, but we're hardly witnessing a rejuvenated movement strong enough to dramatically reverse unions' long run decline. That's despite the historical tight labor market, worker dissatisfaction with their employers, during the pandemic, a U.S. president who has proclaimed himself as the most pro-union president, leading the most pro-union administration in American history, and the fact that unions are now more popular than they've ever been any time since 1960. Not true. Call it the union paradox. Near record high popularity, but low participation. Some people are interested in the idea of it, but not the reality. The reality is the real world. You know who knows about the real world? And it's this lady that I'm going to show you. And this lady is not a liberal white woman. She is not. Hopefully she will be the future commissioner of the NFL. Here's a bit of a reality.
So are you for school choice or not? We already have a choice system in education. If you are of means, you will move to a district where the schools are good and the houses are expensive, like Palo Alto, California. If you go across the street from Stanford, Palo Alto High has a performance arts center that looks like a smaller version of Stanford's. If you're really wealthy, you will send your kids to private schools. So who's stuck in failing neighborhood schools? Poor kids. A lot of them minority kids. So how can you say you're for civil rights? How can you say you're for the poor when you're condemning those children to not being able to read? By the time they're in third grade, they're never going to read. So if you want to say that school choice and vouchers and charter schools are destroying the public schools, fine. You write that editorial in the Washington Post, but then don't send your kids to Sidwell Friends.
There you go. Gotta love Condoleezza Rice, and and we don't see enough of Condoleezza. We don't hear enough from Condoleezza. So when I found this clip, I was like, you know what, we got to get it out there. We said here on Fight Back Media and the Willie Lawson Show, and as long as we've been doing this, that the deal is school choice. Because, and especially for Republicans and conservatives, because the idea is exactly what Dr. Rice said. The only people left in failing schools are the poor kids that are usually minority kids, and what the mom in the projects, ghetto, whatever word you want to use, what she has in common with the suburban mom who is taking her kids to the charter school in the SUV, is that they want the best educational venue for their kids to be in possible. That's what they do have in common. They may not have anything else in common other than they both are sporting breasts and a vagina. That may be the only thing they have that they have in common. But they also have in common that they want the best education or educational opportunity for their children. If indeed we have parents who love their children. One of those parent groups, the people who have means, like Condoleezza said, have access to moving into a neighborhood with a good school, even if it's a public school, right? Where the schools are good and the houses are expensive. And if you're wealthy beyond that, you can find a private school to send your kid to, drive them there every day, or give them the keys to the Land Rover and they can drive themselves. And left behind in the failing schools are the poor children, the minority kids. So how can, just like Condoleezza said, how can you be screaming, especially Juneteenth just being yesterday, how you be screaming for civil rights and equity and all of these things if you are part of a union that's refusing to give those very parents that you are talking to a choice in where they send their children? How is that possible? How's that cognitive dissonance going? Must keep you up at night. My name is Willie Lawson. This is the Morning Report for the 20th of June, 2024. We got to get out of here maybe from somebody else. So until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We will see you when we see you. Like, share, and subscribe.